Hello and welcome into the SorareData Strategy Show. I am Andrew Laird. You can find me on Sorare as Lairdinho. Joined as always by Sean Newsham, who you can find as PSU Fans 2, also on Sorare. Today, to extend our conversation, to progress our conversation from last week about going from rare to pro tournaments. Sean, actually, let me mention that, something about that in a second. And then now pro to super rare competitions. Sean, I'm fairly certain I had this realization like a few days ago that Sorare did not call it Rare Pro, but it's actually just Pro. Oh, you're muted now. Your whole response was just like...
No, it wasn't much. What is listed as Pro?
So they don't call it Rare Pro. They just call it Pro.
All-Star
like
Pro.
All-Star Pro.
So it's All-Star Rare, All-Star Pro, All-Star Super, All-Star Unique.
You got it.
Still terrible. It still should be. But I mean,
you're going to die on this hill of going back to D4, D3, D2.
I don't think it's a hill. I think it's like an obvious fact. Like
it's not happening.
Yeah, but tell me, like, I understand it's not happening. That's not the question. But like, it's very clear it should happen.
I will only say that the reason why I think it's okay how it is now, and it was actually something that Nellis said, and I think where he is kind of in this Sorare community that a lot of like beginners go to him with questions, because that's kind of what a lot of his content is geared towards. He said he gets a lot fewer questions about like what cards can be played where since they moved from the numeric divisions to the semi-descriptive ones.
It just doesn't make sense. The descriptions just don't make sense, Laird. They just don't. Like Division 5 and then explaining what's in Division 5 makes sense. And calling it limited division is fine because it is limited division. Rare division is also fine because it is the rare division. Rare Pro, Super Rare, and Unique divisions do not make sense because they have a different amount of cards that you can play in it. Like, should the
they could have just called it anything.
Yeah, you could have called it like the Division Challenger Elite, and then been like Challenger Elite equals at least 4 super rares, up to 1 rare and one unique card. Like, but it doesn't. It says super rare division. Well, it's not the super rare division because I can use a rare or super rare or unique in that division. So it just doesn't make sense. Like the actual wording for stuff does not make sense. Division 2 is this, this, and this. That makes sense. So I think it just is a very illogical breakdown of things, and it just is not intuitive. Like they made it easier for the new user, but like if I'm the new user and I come in and I'm like, oh man, the All-Star Pro division, like I guess that's fine because like it doesn't say Super Rare division, right? So it says like the All-Star Pro division. But when you get to like All-Star Super Rare, you're like, all right, cool, I just need 5 super rares. Then you get in there and it's like, oh, I don't need 5 super rares. This doesn't make much sense to me.
It's funny that you went with the method of trying to call it something like semi-descriptive when I was like, oh, you could call it anything, because you were like, whatever you called it, Challenger, Elite, or something.
You could call it Laird division.
I was ready to go just as crazy. We're like, okay, this is the Alligator division, and over here is the Grizzly Bear division where you play super rares and uniques. And
100%. Yeah, I just don't think it makes the way that it currently is just like it just doesn't make sense. Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 made sense. Because you had then a very they changed it to make it more intuitive, but it's not more intuitive. It's less intuitive, if anything, because it is.
I think it's more descriptive,
but it's
not fully descriptive.
It's not even more descriptive. It's just factually incorrect in certain spots.
But it's not called the super rare only division. It's just like, hey, here's a super rare division.
You don't think about
you can play some super rares here.
The point is, it makes way more sense to do like Division 5. There's 5 limited cards, or can you have common and limited division anymore? I don't think so. So it's limited division. So Division 5, limited division, you can only use 5 limited cards. Division 4, all rare cards. Division 3, a mixture of rare and super rare cards. Like it's just very easy to call it, like you said, call Alligator division. This is what you can use. But instead, they now have 2 divisions that just don't make sense. I guess it doesn't matter as much down at the bottom because like limited division is limited division.
Rare that one works, yeah.
Rare Pro is not called like All-Star Rare division. It's called Rare Pro. So like Rare Pro,
it's called All-Star Pro.
Description. So like why couldn't they have called Super Rare Pro, Unique Pro, whatever? It just doesn't matter because there's just other ways to do it. But and also it's just like the fact that I had no idea it was not called All-Star Rare Pro. Literally did not know that until you just said that. And I look at this site a significant amount.
Right. Thousands of hours a day.
So Lyndon said it is more descriptive for new players. I agree it's more descriptive for new players, but you could have said Division 4 and then been descriptive with what Division 4 is. So instead, they just used a more descriptive option and then didn't describe it accurately.
Yeah,
League One, that's a good example. So that
is a good example. Thank you. Good
League
place.
One,
League One,
not
the third
being
division.
like
Yeah.
the top league doesn't make sense to me. And then like it being League One, then the championship, then the premiership, like that does not make sense to me. It should be like Division 1, the Premier League, Division 2, the championship, Division 3 or whatever, League 3, League 1, the Premier League, League 2, the championship.
Championship as the second division makes actually that I feel like worse about that than League One being the third level.
That's fair. I'm not going to argue that, Laird. I will give you, and I think that it makes sense. Anyway, this doesn't matter at all, but it just does not make sense. I'm actually checking it. Yeah, literally, I did not know it was not Rare Pro. I literally was checking it this second to see what it was called.
That's why I had to bring it up.
Did you know that before you looked at it?
Yes.
Okay.
But like, I knew that like last week.
Okay.
Like I don't say it.
Did you? Okay. I was going to ask you if you knew about it because of like content and stuff you do.
I mean, did you know that it's not Champion America?
Nope. Had no idea. Used to be.
So the old school Champion America D3 is now just America Pro. That's what it's called.
I'm fine with that, to be fair. That I'm absolutely fine with.
Yeah.
I have no problem with it being Asia Pro or America Pro or Rare Pro. Like that's fine. I actually think that's probably better than Champion America because like Champion America doesn't make sense when it's just everything in America that you have accounted for.
Thank you to everybody who has joined us live. It looks like SR Monkey was in first. Levi's, Zarky is here. Hudson, David Alves, Levi's, Tommy B. Appreciate all of you guys coming in. Mike Basson's blowing us off for a Billy Idol concert, it looks like. Wow. How about that? I will say I'm really excited for the show that we're going to do in a year about progressing to the alligator division. Like, I really think I want that to happen now. Just like scrap them and just like really come up with something nuts. What we actually are doing today is talking about super rare tournaments and basically at what point are you ready to do them or whether you even should. Generally, people who have played Rare Pro for a while, they accumulate super rares, and then obviously the next place to go is the super rare division, even though you technically only need 3 super rares to do that. Playing 3 super rares does require a unique though, so we'll get to that in a little bit. But Sean, I know you play the super rare division regularly and have for a long time. Yeah. And you clearly are very open, and a lot of people who play that division are very open in that it's not one that's regularly prioritized. And Sorare changed the reward structure a little bit recently to make it a little more attractive. You still tend not to see like the elite super rares in that division. You see them more in either Division 1, the unique division, or Pro. But do you think that there is a reasonable path for people to progress from the Pro division to super rare in a single region? So like if you compete in All-Star Pro, is it better to go to super rare, All-Star super rare, or like a regional challenger pro or champion Euro pro or something like that? Like, what do you think is the next step if you have like one good solid pro division team?
I think the real idea with it and the real thought process behind it is that you should be planning to do it, and you should be planning to do it in regards to look at it as you're making your Division 3 better. Yes, I'm using Division 3 layered. But like, so the idea with if you buy a rare, for example, or if you buy a super rare, your idea should be you're making Division 3 better. And then once you have enough depth, we're like, okay, I have 8 super rares or 8 rares or whatever. And then you're like, all right, I have enough rares where it now makes sense to make my D4 good. But the idea behind it for me is that your Division 3 is the priority. So like you effectively are getting enough pieces to choose between matchups to run in Division 3. And then the remainder of the pieces for a week, in the pro division, Division 3. And then your remaining pieces will be utilized in the Division 2 or 4 based on whatever you're looking at from a perspective of the rare card. So, for example,
that sounds like the super rare division. Sorry to cut you up there. That sounds like super rare is literally just for leftovers.
Super rare for me is for leftovers. I think people are crazy if they are really spending and putting massive cards in Division 2 for the most part. The issue, it is getting better. The super rare division prize pool is getting better, and it has improved from where it was 6 months ago. 3 months ago.
Has it improved for everyone or just the top?
It doesn't matter. It's at least improved somewhere. Sure. 3 months ago was terrible. Literally, it did not matter. If you won, it sucked. Like, it was awful even at the top. Now, yes, it's pretty much only at the top things are better, but at least there's something that is good instead of everything just being a trash can. So now you at least have, let's say, 3 spots in each region that is good. So I do think that is an improvement. Yes, it is not an improvement on position 18, but the ones that you really care about are the ones at the top, and those have been improved upon based on how things are. So it definitely is better, but like I definitely will say on a given week, I prioritize my rare pro divisions first, as you know, for the most part. And then I will work on my all-star super rare and then other super rare divisions based on where my teams are. Now, I have enough good cards that typically my lineups in Division 2s or in the super rare division will be pretty good, but I'm not worried about that as much as I am my rare pro lineups. Like I will typically have enough good players that I can make some strong-ish lineups, but for the most part, I will have some spots that are just not great or pretty mediocre. Like if we look through my rare or my super rare teams for this week, like you'll look at my America super rare. Like I basically just threw in what I had left in bad matchups to see what I could get out of things. In Asia, I literally just threw in scraps. It was nothing good. In Champ Europe, I literally threw in, for the most part, scraps. But partially, that was because my matchup with Freiburg was really strong away at Bayern. So I did not just run a Freiburg stack. But like I'm effectively just putting in like what's left. Generally, my all-star will be good. The reason my all-star is typically good or good-ish is because if I look at it, they give a tier 0 super rare for first. So you have a shot to get an Mbappe Kimmich super rare for first. I can't get that in other areas. I can't get those elite cards in other areas. Even in like in Champ or U23, I cannot get the best cards. I can only get a tier 1, which obviously in those regions, tier 1 are good, but like my cap is 5 ETH. Let's say Champ Europe tier 1 is 5 ETH or U23 T1 is 5 ETH. That's my cap. I don't have a chance to get a Kimmich, a Neymar, a Messi, Mbappe, et cetera, et cetera. So I will typically make my all-star rare super rare the strongest. And then typically, like I will play for uniques. Like I prioritize my Division 1. So like my Division 2 will typically get like a unique that's left over. Or if there isn't any, I'll just run super rares. I'm not super worried about it. And like sometimes I'll run random stacks. Like this week, I maybe had better plays than Osmar individually or Key individually, but I had the ability to run like a pretty good FC Soul stack and run that. But like, so yeah, looking at Champ, like you just saw it, like I played Matus. Matus Nunez is not a great play. In Challenger Rare Pro, I ran Van Kronbruge and DeBost in my Challenger line. Well, they played Bruges. Like that's a terrible matchup. That's probably the worst matchup you can get in that league. So it's just situations like that. Like it goes with our discussion. Players aren't always the best or worst depending on the matchup. Like matchup means a lot. Yeah. And if you have a terrible matchup, it makes the card worse than it would normally be on average. Or if you have a good matchup, it would be better than it normally would be.
So one of the comments that came up in our conversation last week during our stream, I think it was from Surface, that said, effectively, if you're playing a rare card in the super rare division, then you're not ready to play the super rare division. And obviously, you have the opportunity to play one unique, which is significantly more powerful than any rare card you're going to play. It doesn't mean we don't see elite rare cards in the super rare division, but I know that you played one somewhere. I just looked, but like I assume, well, you just said like you're not prioritizing this region, and so playing a rare like is under some. Yeah, this is Joe Willis one. Ironically, I almost won a card in All Star Super Rare last week when Willis had 100.
Yeah.
But do you think that it's worth people trying to play the Super Rare division with a rare card regularly, or are you truly sticking with this like do not prioritize super rare at all, and if you just have your leftover super rares and you happen to have a rare, then like throw it in?
That's pretty much where I'm at. I mean,
Yeah.
with things like I will obviously run super rares for the most part if I get them, especially in goal where it's most goalies are so close. You want the super rare because you want the bonus, but goalie's also the weakest spot. And goalie rare especially gives you more utility downwards into the rare or into the pro division. So it's something where I think that having a rare goalie, like I would definitely get goalie last. Part of that's because I want to tie up as little resources in goalie as possible. Like it's impossible not to tie up reasonable resources in goalie, but I want my goalies to be as cheap as possible from a super rare perspective if I can do that. So definitely something to note, but typically looking at things like I definitely want to prioritize my pro division. Like for example, great example of someone that was in a bad matchup this week, but did get an assist, Vonnegut. So like specialist super is pretty low down my priority list. As you can see by like where people are. Like I wasn't positive Anthony's going to start. I'm not positive Parks is going to start. Vonnegut I knew would start, but matchup was terrible. Wittick has been atrocious, but good matchup. And then Marchison under 40, so he fit there. But so you have a situation where like I will try to make as good of lineups as I can in every area. But like if I have to run a rare, I will run a rare instead of going and just buying another card in the super division. Like if you look back through previous weeks, especially when things are a bit tighter in the amount of teams that play, I'll have rares in the rare pro division on occasion. And I choose.
You mean super rare?
In the super rare division, I will choose super rares over uniques too, depending on the matchup. Like I'm not going to just play a dumpy unique to play them if I have a good super rare to play. Like I mean, most weeks you'll see like in the super rare all-star super rare, I will have 4 super rares, not unique. Yeah. So for example, like I actually would have got a decent card here if Understall played because I'm pretty sure Teton had like 70. So like, if you give like Understall 70, gives me like 85 points. I have a pretty good. So he had 64. So
64 like raw points.
With the bonus, that's like 80. So like if you give him 80 points, I definitely get a tier 2 probably even. Because I would have been 40 points up from where I was, just below tier 2. But I would have won a card regardless. I would have won a card.
Yep.
So, but I have uniques that I could have used, but like I don't have a unique that I thought was better than any of these individual guys in that lineup that I could have ran. Similarly, like the same thing with the unique division. Like I will not force a unique in if I do not need to do it. If I have a much better option as a super, I will run a super instead of unique. Obviously within the guidelines of the division. But like as you see, like Challenger, like I definitely had a unique I probably could have used there, but it was worse than what my other options would have been. And I just felt like it was a better spot to use them.
It's funny you bring this up because I think we've talked about this before, that people basically tank lineups by forcing uniques in, either in super rare or even the unique division. Like,
correct.
It's obviously the XP is so much higher on these uniques, but like if the card and the matchup and the player is just not as good as a super rare you have, like we're after raw, like real points here, like total points. We're not, you don't get extra credit just because you happen to be using a unique. And I feel like that's something that you have mentioned to a number of people, just like, oh, I see this, if it's a 5 unique division lineup, or one of these where it's 4 super rares and 1 unique, and you're just like, do you have a super rare that is better? And they're like, yeah, but I have this unique. And you're like, your lineup is worse with this unique. And yet, obviously uniques are not cheap. So people, spend a lot, so they want to use them. But it's like one of the biggest, I don't necessarily want to call it a mistake, but if it's not a mistake, then it's just a poor decision. And people are like tanking their lineups because of it.
Yeah. People want to force in the player of the above scarcity or whatever it is to make yourself the max scarcity in whatever division. But sometimes that's not bad. You got to look at every card as an individual card. Like Carlos Gil is a 68 average midfielder. So in a neutral matchup that he is expected to get exactly 68 points, that is better than a unique that's expected to get like 55.
Yeah.
Like it's a slightly better card than that unique. So like if you're forcing in a unique that's an average of like 45, you're much worse off than playing Carlos Gil Super instead and just getting in Carlos Gil. And obviously it matters. So like, for example, like I could have used a Juke this week in my Champ Europe Division 2 lineup, I believe. But he had a terrible matchup. So I just was like, I'm not going to use him. I'm going to use Oshman, who I was like, if he starts, he's a much better play because they were massive favorites at home. I think he's a better card than what a Juke is probably. So it's definitely a situation like that where you have to evaluate everything. Now, obviously, I'm not sitting here like breaking down numbers to like an exact pinpoint number right now. Like I'm just not doing that. Actually, what's funny is this line was actually pretty good because I had 3 smashers, and then Coco Combi didn't smart, and Matus was just atrocious. So, anyways, but like, which is funny because this was like a complete throwaway for me because I just put in the guys that were left, and this was like the best options of what was left here. So that's just sort of what happened. But yeah, it's just usually I will throw scraps into my super division. Not to say I can't get good stuff. Like if you look back through the weeks, like I typically will pick up a super rare or 2 on a given week. And if you can get a reasonable super, like I'm trying to think of the guys I've won recently that are impactful cards. Because here's another discussion point that I think will be interesting for people. Typically, there's not as many Kimmich super rares or Neymar super rares out there. You're talking like 10 to 20 cards, some players less, some players slightly more. But if you're playing, let's say, gas super rare, well, the Kimmich super rares are probably used in Champ Europe or Pro, Champ Europe Division 1, Gas Division 1, Gas Division 3. There's like 6 spots for people to play these cards. There might be 1 or 2 of those cards in the super division. So like you are not going up against every alpha card all the time in that division because there aren't enough of them to realistically do that. So when you look from a week to week standpoint, lower level super rares can typically provide value and do enough to get you card wins on week to week basis because you just don't necessarily need the best cards per se all the time. You go look at my Champ Europe in the midweek and see what I ran. I ran a Freiburg stack with Lautaro Martinez, a rare Lautaro Martinez, and I missed the podium by like a couple points in super rare in Champ Europe. Yeah, you see like the Jota line there too. But like I thought he was a better option than my other forward, so I ran Lautaro, but I missed a podium by what, 2 points? 10 points. So I missed a podium by 10 points, which would have been a tier 2 super rare. So like let's see what the rewards were for 3rd through 5th in Champ Europe last week in the midweek. Because it's just like sometimes you can have cards like all of those guys, like from a Champ Europe perspective, that lineup's pretty cost efficient. Like that line was like 8 ETH. Like that cost me 8 ETH, which for a Champ Europe super rare division, that is really, really cheap. So 3rd got Luka Jovic. Luka Jovic is a totally usable player. Steve Mandanda is usable, assuming he's still starting. I have absolutely no clue. Like Di Lorenzo, which went for 2nd, like Giovanni Di Lorenzo is a really good card. Like he has really good production, is not super expensive, but like you can still play him in lineups, and he's a great depth type guy that you can get in there and you can play as well. So like, if I look through some super rares.
And how do you feel getting the lowest value card on this entire page?
It's fine. I'm not trying. I wasn't expecting to get like anything super great. But like if I look, so in recent weeks in super rare division only. So like I won a Carlos Alcaraz from racing in Argentina. He's like worth like 0.6, 0.7 ETH. Apparently he's the beneficiary of Vecchio blowing out his ACL. He's a good option. I won a Fukamore in Global All-Star for a tier 3. Like Fukamore, when he's on his game and he has a good matchup, like he's a very high upside card.
Yeah, he's got upside for a defender.
Yeah, totally. Like I won a in Champion Europe super rare a couple weeks ago, like maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. I got 3rd with like that Freiburg lineup with like some other stuff. Or no, maybe I just had scraps and it was a scrap week. But I won a Borja Iglesias. He sold for like 0.7 immediately, and like I sold him for 0.66, it looks like. And if you look at him, he scores a decent amount of the time. So like there's just, you can pick up cards. Like I won a Zika from Daegu, who is like the alternate Brazilian on the team to Cecina. And he's currently injured, but he averaged like 60 points over like an 8-week stretch. So it's there. You can just pick up usable cards that you can function. Like, for example, I used Zika in like my Asia Rare Pro line in a certain matchup because they were a significant favorite, and it just made sense to pair him there with Cecilia. And I've had it for like I've had it for like a month, or I could have sold it. Like I could have sold it and got 0.4 ETH. So like it's about building depth, and the best way to build super rare depth is obviously by winning. And if I can win some usable pieces that I can play on an occasion, that is tremendous additional utility for me.
Yeah. Yep. That all makes sense. I wanted to highlight the lineup that's currently winning All-Star Super Rare for this week. There were a few people who have mentioned to me that FC20's got like a decent upcoming matchup schedule or a fixture list. And it started this week. And this one just like a 5-man stack. Obviously there was a unique involved, but I'm not sure. Like this isn't like a 30 ETH lineup here.
No.
Like you didn't need
the whole team probably cost under 10. And it's going to win like floor.
How much? I mean, it could win a monster. Yeah.
How much ETH is going in there? 1 point. Like your literal floor is 4 ETH with this, and this team probably costs 10 ETH. Like he did not break the bank. Like the most expensive card here is Geese Small. Like I don't think the rest of it costs 5 ETH. And I'm assuming Geese Small costs like 2 or 3 max. 4. Okay, so 4. So he paid 4 ETH for that card. The rest of it probably costs 4 to 5 ETH. So you're talking like an 8 to 9 ETH line, maybe even less.
Yeah,
that's a lot for Burnett.
6-ish, 7.
That's a lot for Burnett. I'm surprised he paid that much for Burnett. 8. And Mizjan is probably saying like 1.4. So yeah, like what are you at? Like 8.5. So this line costs 8.5. Like the floor that is going to return this week is what?
Probably 4.
Probably 4. Yeah. Realistically 4. What now? How far ahead was it from second place? So like here's a good example of just like, and this could matter. Like it could matter. I'm not saying it doesn't. So it was 30 points ahead of second place as of now. Like things could change, obviously, could be different. But if you had a super rare of Geese Small instead of a unique, you still win.
Yeah.
And if you had a super rare of Geese Small, it was probably like a 5 ETH lineup, and it's going to cost you, it's going to net you at least 4. And that's if you like brick the shit out of your rewards, which I'm very good at in super rare division. But yeah, so like Geese Small super rare is like 1.8, but like there's no way it was 1.8 a while ago. Like a couple months ago, it was like 1.2, 1.
Yeah.
So it's just a situation where like you don't always need a unique. You can compete. Like he would have won this without a unique, and if he just ran a super of all those cards. Now he would have not won it with a rare. He would have not won it with a rare Geese Small or like a rare of some of the other cards.
Or rare anyone.
Yes, or rare anyone. Well, he could have won it with a rare without the unique. If he had a rare understall instead of a super understall, he still would have won.
Yeah.
But he needed the unique in some point. So like, but this goes to show like you can win. You just have to ask yourself like on a given week, like having a super rare Lars Understall instead of a rare Lars Understall is going to cost you 15-ish points. So are those 15-ish points worth getting unique in? Similar to the rare to the super rare. Like, is that 15 points worth getting a super rare comparatively to the unique or the super or the rare? Like you just got to ask yourself that. And some weeks don't matter. Like you'll have weeks where you lose a game or something by 2 points, and then you'll have stuff where you just win by like 40 and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But realistically, like that lineup was pretty cost effective, got the job done, told a story. Telling a story is always important. Like he literally told a story. 20 is going to smash. That was the story that lineup tells. What happened? 20 smashed. And what happened? He won. So it's a pretty reasonable thing. I would bet he's had some reasonable weeks where they've done pretty well on the course of this season. Oh, Proper got adjusted up. That makes sense. I was watching that game, and I thought Robin Proper was getting just robbed of points. So I'm glad to see Robin Proper actually got what he probably deserved. By the way, Laird, did you see who let down my Gas 3 lineup?
No. Kimmich?
Well, and Blend at half. I'm getting a tier 1, a high tier 1, and I missed a star by 6 points. And Kimmich put up his like worst game, one of the worst games of the season.
Yeah, you should just sell him.
I should just.
That guy
Terrible.
sucks.
But Proper also let it down. If Proper had a bit more, would have been better. But I actually thought Proper should have been on like 60. They gave him, the worst part was they gave him a BCM Laird. Oh, they actually took it away. That's what the stats. So he got robbed on statistics. Like his stats, he had more tackles won than he got credit for. They didn't give it to him. But they gave him a BCM, but he was offsides on BCM, but they didn't call offsides because he just went out for a goal kick. And basically where the offsides was going to be was a goal kick. So the ref just didn't say anything. But they basically gave him a BCM that was in there till recently, and he didn't deserve a BCM for it.
Shouldn't that still be a BCM though? If they just gave the goal kick?
Yeah, no, it should have been, but it was more of a like I was frustrated that it was a BCM because it should have been called offside. It just wasn't. But yes, it should have been because they played on, so like it should have been a BCM.
Yeah. I gotcha. So does the Underdog, Super Rare, and Specialist Super Rare adjust your strategy at all in terms of where to use your Super Rare cards?
I try to make my best lineups, right? So I will sometimes change things a little bit to get the best lineup and make the best things happen. I know what the better areas are and where we want to play better cards at, but I will sometimes slightly move things around due to that. So for example, like I would have used, and this might actually come back to bite me in the ass. So yeah, so like as you see, like, but this is the midweek. Or no, was that last weekend?
I thought that was, it might have loaded.
No, you were right. That was the weekend. That was the weekend. But so the rewards are just not that good there. So it's not like a priority to me. So in terms of the lineup, so like go look at my lineups this week. I played Keaton Parks in my Specialist Super Rare. I would have played Osmar, and I plan to play Osmar there because he is the best U40 Super Rare mid. But he fit into my stack in D2, so I felt it was more of an option.
Yeah.
Well, look at this lineup. Let's click on what I need to get up to the podium. Sure as shit would rather have 63 points locked in from Osmar, wouldn't I?
Yeah, that would have been nice.
Yeah, but I prioritized Gas 3 or Gas 2 instead because it allowed me to get a sort of soul stack instead of playing this.
I think that's fine though. Like I don't think that was a mistake of any kind.
No, I don't think it was a mistake either. But just goes to show, like, it doesn't really matter. Like everything's gonna play out how it is. Like some weeks you're gonna get killed. It all comes down to like what sort of happens in the right lineup. So, for example, go look at my Challenger 3 this week. So, like, I debated what to use in Gas 3 and what to use in Challenger 3 based on the Zenit stack and the Ajax stack. And like, look at what happened to my Challenger 3. No, go up one more. Challenger 3. Wendell didn't play, and then Teddy Tuma, who's played every game of the year, didn't play. But so like, luckily,
and they smashed. I didn't even see that they smashed.
By the time it got to Teddy Tuma, that line was dead.
Yeah.
So like, it didn't matter because so like it just sort of happened. Like I was basically debating whether to sort of run like this type of lineup in Gas or whether to run it in Challenger. And it just so happened that like the right one ended up in the right spot. Because like I could have played, for example, Wendell and Malcolm over Tadic and Blind. And then I could have ran Tadic and Blind here instead of Wendell and Malcolm. If I did that, both lineups would have been dead because Wendell would have been killing one of them. Tuma would have been killing the other. So it's more so of just sometimes variance is going to work out for you and you're going to get the right combination.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're just going to get the wrong combination. And obviously the only thing you care about is getting the right combination when it actually matters.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all that matters.
Sorry, I was looking at the Underdog Super Rare, which offers a Tier 1 Super Rare and a Star Rare for first place. And then notice that Tony Watt is in first. So I wanted to pull that up.
I mean, I would love to see Tony Watt get first.
Yeah.
Is he going to get first? Looks pretty realistic.
Looks pretty good.
I hope Tony Watt gets first. Tony deserves some good things. Last week, I don't know if you guys missed it. Tony cost himself a star last week. Not like making a bad lineup, like literally Tony
cost himself
a tier 0 by not scoring a goal when everyone else in his lineup popped out in the midweek.
It was midweek.
Right? It was midweek. It was definitely midweek.
Yeah, so he actually talked about this
Yeah, great.
on
Best
the
tweet
end product
that's
pod.
ever been on the platform. I don't know if we'll have another one.
If anybody doesn't listen to the end product pod, I highly recommend it. But Tony talked about this lineup, and he talked about how he missed a goal by like an inch. And he was like, I even thought after it happened of the 25 points I didn't get, plus the bonus on the super rare. And I was just like, it's like exactly what you want to hear from a professional footballer who plays so rare.
What did he say? He said he missed a goal by like an inch.
Yeah, so he said like as it happened, he was like thinking of the 25 points because like the decisive score, plus he has the super rare, so it was even more. And he was
Yeah,
like, I
like
just
30,
cost
like he gets
myself like
35.
the podium.
If he gets a goal, so that's 28 plus the bonus. He would have been like right on the edge of the podium.
Like really, I mean, the podium was only 39 away.
Yeah,
Right?
so he
He
would have been
definitely
like right
gets it.
on the edge. I actually asked him if one of his guys in his lineup would have got the assist on it.
Oh, that's a good question.
He said no. He said someone else would have caught the assist. But yeah, it was like best tweet ever, and it was awesome. I love Tony. I love listening to Tony,
Yeah.
except for when he thinks he would score goals against me, which we all know that's not happening. But he actually scored this weekend. I saw. So I think Tony. I said I was like, it's pretty funny. Tony literally didn't score when it mattered for himself on Sorare, and did score when it did not matter, because I don't think his lineup this weekend was as good.
It was not as good. I'm trying to. Let's see. I was trying
But
to find
it's
the
just
tweet
funny
where he
to see.
blames
It's
himself.
actually funny to see, because he was like, when he tweeted making fun of himself for missing was pretty hilarious.
Yeah, it was. I can't even find it, so whatever. But yeah, so like the upside of super rare underdog super rare, whatever we're calling it, is not quite as high as like all star, but it's still really high. Like it's a tier 1 super rare and a star rare. Like that's really good. And you only need 4 super rares to compete, obviously. The kind of kicker with playing the super rare division is winning tier 3 super rares, which I would argue are like the hardest cards to get value out of on the platform, unless you like hit the nuts on whatever the tier 3 is. But like some tier 3 super rares just like never move, because like nobody wants to sell a super rare for like $30, but they're also not good enough to play. So like, is that a hindrance at all for people who like think they should move up to the super rare division?
Yes and no. Like, I don't know. Like, I guess for me, like, you can find guys that like provide value for you that are just weird players. Like, especially with the more and more stuff that Sorare is providing, you can have a super that's like a 39 average guy that can really provide value for you in the U40 competition if something changes for him. Like, I'll give an example of a guy that I have that was terrible and was like not worth very much, but Kang In Lee, who's now at Mallorca, he was terrible last year. He's young, so it's a bit of a different situation because he's young. So last year he scored 60 points like one time, like on the entire season. This year, he rattled off 4 straight 40s, and he's had a few other solid enough games. But he was able to be in the U40 for a good chunk of those games, and now he's still underdog eligible. So like last year, I would get offers at like 0.05 for him. Well, I'm just not going to sell him at 0.05. It doesn't make sense, because any stretch like this happens where he transfers to Mallorca and then is a relatively solid player, all of a sudden he could be really good. Like, the same can be said, especially for like top end guys. If you get a guy in like Champ Europe, like, so for example, like with that card, I hadn't really played it at all. I was able to use him in Specialist Super Rare about a month ago, and I finished 5th and got a card worth like 0.8 ETH because I had that card. So like, if I don't really see the point in selling a card for like $20 that's a super rare, unless it's like an 80-year-old super rare that's just never a good example. But I'll give a great example. So Teton, you and I both had a Premislav Teton, and we both were like, this guy is literally never starting another game when he transferred to Ajax. And we were like, this guy is so useless, I'm just going to sell him. And I sold him. Well, then he went to FC20 and he started a game and he put up a 65. Now, granted, you didn't know he was going to start that game, so it really wasn't worthwhile. But it's just a situation where like, look, have I used it that often? No, not at all. But he was the key to that lineup because he was a U40.
Yeah.
So like he was one of the keys in that lineup because of that. And then like Natsuki, like this guy's a pretty promising player. He's like 19 or 18.
Yeah, those are solid. Wow. The classic like reward where you're like, don't know who this guy is, and you look it up and you're like, oh, he's not bad. Well done. But yeah, I think that's like, I think the biggest hesitation is just ending up on cards that you just don't, that you can't use and you can't really sell. Francisco here is saying to look up Lionel Miranda from Racing. 0.299 for the super rare. That seems fine. Oh, it's Underdog eligible, so that's good. Do you tend to focus more on upside for Underdog lineups than you do your regular like super rare tournaments?
No, not as much per se, because like you and I've talked about, the thing that matters is the captain. You need to bag like 80 plus on your captain, or it just doesn't matter realistically, or you need a bunch of good scores. So if I have like an 80 with like 355s, that is an 80 captain's like 120 plus 355. So you're at 165 plus one, let's say 125, you're at like 290. Where would 290 put you at for the weekend?
For specialist?
Yeah.
That's where we are.
No, not specialist
I mean, underdog.
For underdog.
Yeah. I think Tony was first at 320.
Yeah, so but I think second was like 281, so like you would literally be in second.
Come on. No. Yeah, I mean, selfishly, as somebody who sits on a bunch of bad super rares, like I keep wanting to play, you know, like find more utility for them, and obviously super rare like allows me to do that. But or I mean underdog and specialist, but it's just kind of a weird spot where personally, like I don't know whether to keep buying super rares for underdog or specialist feels like just lighting money on fire.
Yeah, so actually our good a good point is Keith. We talked about Gator Guy and his love for the underdog contest. He was talking, actually he was pissed off about it. Let's go to Gator Guy for the weekend. Let's see what his life did. But he wanted to buy like underdog eligible super rares. And I'm just like, you just can't sell them. So I don't even know if he made a line. So let's see if he made a specialist or a super rare lineup for underdog or specialist. I don't even know if he did, because he ended up not doing it. I think he didn't buy the player. He was pissed because he was going to buy Kane or Erkin. Yeah, so he didn't make a line.
Yeah, and Erkin smashed.
And Erkin smashed. I don't know who else he would ran there, but like the issue is like, let's say you paid 0.2 for Kane or Erkin super rare. You realistically can't sell it. Like, yeah, maybe you can sell it, but like you realistically like just aren't going to sell it that frequently. Like it's just kind of going to be a card that you have that is just like in your gallery now, which isn't terrible, but like, so I think it would have cost him like 0.4, 0.5 to buy it. It's very unlikely you're going to get a reward worth 0.4, 0.5. I just can't justify buying a super. Now that said, obviously Erkin smashed, maybe he would have, but it's a tricky situation.
But like, aren't we at a point where like we're just saying like there's no way you can sell this card and we're saying this 20 seconds after talking about somebody who was going to buy it. So it's not like it's like totally dead. Like you don't need 50 people to buy a card. Like you just need one. So you just need one other person who's as dumb as you are for buying the first card and then trying to sell it the next week. This doesn't even seem like a bad card to have.
No, that's what I told him. I told him I didn't think it was a terrible card. I thought it was a pretty reasonable card to have in your gallery.
0.6 seems a little high based on
he's old. He's really old. That's the problem. You buy it and you're just like, you ride into the ground, right? And you hope he generates enough.
Yeah, like 0.33 2 days ago.
Yeah.
That seems
like 0.33. Like, is it worth it? Maybe.
Yeah, it just feels like one of those cards that's like good enough for specialist or he's probably not even underdog. Yeah. But is not good enough for rare for pro. And then it's like, well, is it good enough for super rare? And it's like, maybe, but now you're like, do I have enough cards for a full super rare lineup?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting card. Turkey's filled with guys like this.
Yeah, I agree.
33 to 38, consistently in the 50 to 65 point range. And yeah, I actually feel like some of them have like a huge amount of supply too. 8 super rares for Urkin. I was like expecting to see like 20. So I guess 8's really not that many, but
yeah,
still.
Yeah.
So what would it take realistically for you to start prioritizing super rare division? Like obviously it's like better rewards, but like what rewards would you need to see in the prize pool that can be reasonably expected there that would make you be like, oh wait, maybe I will put my better super rares here?
To be fair, they're there now, and they were not there. The fact that, so in the past, before we originally talked about this, let's like 3 weeks ago, so Tony Watt right now is winning a tier 0 rare and a tier 1 super rare.
Yeah.
You look at this a couple weeks ago, it was a tier 1 super. That was it. The max best card in the entire tier 1. Because their tier 1 for the specials is different than the tier 1 for like the actual supers. So like the tier 1 for specials is like not as good. So when I looked at the tier 1 for the super rare, like the best card was like Christian Burgess. And I'm not saying Burgess is bad, like he's fine, but it was literally like first place had a ceiling of 1.5 ETH. Like that was your absolute cap. You were not going to get better than its ceiling.
Yeah.
And he just, that was it. And then second, it was like a cap of like 0.4. So it was like you had no chance to win anything productive. Now, like Tony Watt is winning a tier 0 rare and a tier 1 super. So like Tony Watt's floor is like 2 ETH. So in previous iterations, his ceiling was 1.5. Now his floor is like 2. So it's definitely there. Like I will play my best lineups. So if I know I have a couple really strong U40 players and specialists, I will run them there instead of elsewhere. And typically, so here's the thing, right? I have a lot of super rares. So for me, the like even if I have a good U40, like Osmar is a good U40, right? But like, is Osmar going to end up in my Gas 3 lineup? No, probably not.
Yeah.
Is he going to end up in my Asia 3 lineup?
Ends up in mine.
Maybe, but like probably not. So for me, for you, so like, what's the question? Since this topic, we talked about having this topic, it was a lot based on your progression, like what you're thinking. So like, where are you at with your gallery in terms of moving to Division 2, and like, how's your thought process going with it? Since obviously we're at different stages with where our galleries are. And like, I'm also like, I know people are talking about, we did this topic because people wanted to know about the progression from Rare Pro to the Super Rare Division. Realistically, you're not going to the Super Rare Division unless you have a decently significant gallery where you have quite a bit of cards. So I don't want people to think we're telling everyone to just go play the Super Rare Division.
Yeah. No, I ended up, I'm just here pulling up so these are the weekly tier 1 super rare list. So this is like what Tony Watt's like eligible to win. And like, these are cards I would love to have. Like Zelarayan.
Yeah.
Jonas Hoffman.
Let's call this where it is. If you remove, I'll tell you, keep going down. Keep going down.
Like there are some good guys here. Like Otavio would be fine.
Keep going.
David Ram.
Keep
Marcus
going.
Thuram. Mezraoui. Acosta,
like I'm talking about a big
Coates, my boy.
Yeah, I mean, I love all these cards.
Yeah.
But I want to give a point of like where things were. So where things were, you just got to him. Christian Burgess was the best card. Scroll down a little bit. He was down a little bit.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, you passed him at some point. He was in this range. Yeah, right there. So Christian Burgess was the best possible card you could win before this change.
Right.
It was Christian Burgess and then tier 2s. So you could literally only win him and below, and nothing else was a tier 1, so it was worse. Now you can win a tier 0, which is fantastic, and then you can also win all these guys above him. Like I would love to win a Sebastian Coates. You and I have talked about Sebastian Coates quite a bit, and how that's like one card that like I would love to get. So I think that's more of a situation where like there's just much better cards here now, and then there's also like tier 0 rares, and like even tier 1, like when you can win like a tier 1 rare and a tier 2 super or whatever, like that's productive. Like that is a decent chunk that you can win if you actually win something.
I think what's absolutely wild about this list is how long it is. Like this is the tier 1 list, and it just goes on forever. Like how are how are there this many guys who are considered tier 1? Like your boy Bass Dost is a tier 1 in specialist.
Has he been terrible? I don't even know if he's been that terrible.
I don't know.
Let's see.
Literally don't know.
He's actually been relatively okay. But like, yeah, like I mean, you're just talking about these guys that are just like Callahan. Like, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I guess these guys are like somewhat like, yeah, like Zika. Like, Zika's like 0.4 ETH.
Like, is Jahangbash really a tier 1?
He's way better than most of the other guys in this list. Like, I would much rather have.
He doesn't even play that much. That's the problem.
I'd still rather have him though, because at least
Gaspar Servio. I mean,
yeah. Claudio Bravo literally starts only. He's like 50, and he only starts like the midweek games for them.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I was basically looking at this because I have enough not great super rares where I'm like, I would like to use them somewhere. And it now turns into like, okay, do I buy better ones for my pro lineups, which then make the ones that I currently use in pro kind of extra, which I think is kind of what you were saying literally at the beginning. Like that's what you should do, is that like you should get the best super rares you can for rare pro. And then when you get to a point where you can get better ones, now the ones that you were using in pro can go into super rare. And part of the hesitations that I have is that I don't necessarily think I can compete enough, and I still need to buy a goalie. And I know we keep talking about how like goalie multiples from like rare to super rare multiples are much lower. And I recognize that, but it's like also what you said earlier on, like having to spend resources on goalie is just the absolute nut low of Sorare. And hold on, you're muted. You're muted.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, spending on goalies is just like so miserable. Like it just is not fun.
The downside is so bad. Like the idea of buying a super rare goalkeeper and then having him get hurt or just benched is just like absolute nightmare. Like that. I have spent way too much time trying to figure out which goalkeeper to buy that I know will be a starter for when I have him.
Yeah.
That's not 10 ETH.
Correct. It's just like, that's the problem. Like I think, and we've talked about it, like I'm all for just playing whatever goalies you have and all that stuff. And it does make sense to me, but like there's a lot of validity into spending, and you hate when I say this, but there's a lot of validity into spending more to lock in a goalie that you are concrete sure this is the guy. Like if I look at like, I'm not saying go buy this guy or anything, but like if I look at Mike Mignon, right? Like there is absolutely no way he is not the starter for Milan going forward. And like here's the thing, he's hurt right now, but like you can buy their backup for like their backup is starting, and like how cheap is Tatsurano? I'm sure he's cheap as shit.
I don't know if he is, only because
yeah, but he's gonna be like you just look at it as a package deal, and like you need both. 0.08, Laird. You can literally buy him for 0.08. So like you can guarantee yourself the Milan goaltender for 3 ETH.
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable with that. On the flip side, like you look at other guys and you're like, man, am I really sure this guy's going to be a long-term starter? Like you you have a Don, right? Like you're very confident a Don is the starter today, but is a Don going to be the starter next season? I don't know. Like he's really old. He's going to be 36. Will they bring someone else in to like become the starter? Maybe they might bring in someone else to like give him competition. Same thing with like Diogo Costa. Like, am I buying a Diogo Costa right now? No, probably not, because he's 4.8 ETH. Laird is his floor, which is fucking absurd to me. Sorry for the language, but like, dude is good. I'm not saying he's good, but like, where's he going to go next season? I don't know, but like, it's a very realistic chance. It's a much worse situation than Porto. Yeah. Like, that's why, like, for me, like, I think Vandevor is the best. Actually, there's two people I think I prefer over like Diogo Costa. Van de Voort's 1, and Van de Voort is way cheaper. People complain about Van de Voort. If you looked at Van de Voort, Laird, his L5, L15, L40 are all really strong.
Oh, yeah.
And people are like, oh, Van de Voort sucks. They concede all the time. It's a goalie. Goalies are going to concede. Like, most goalies don't hold a clean sheet 85% of the time. But his AA is typically realistic unless he gives up 3 goals or conceded a penalty. Like, it's not that bad. They don't usually, like, they've only conceded 3 one time this year. That's it. And it was against Bruges, at Bruges. Like, all these other games, like, yeah, like, is 52 getting the job done? No, but it's not killing you. Like, you still have a chance. Yeah. And anyway, so, like, you know he's locked in next year at Genk. You know that when he leaves Genk, he's going to Leipzig, which is a realistically high-end Champ Europe team where he probably will be the starter once he gets there. But, like, if you look at, like, Goulashi was pretty serviceable, but actually worse than what Van de Voort was. But Van de Voort's also 20. Van de Voort is much younger. But, like, that's, like, another person you talk about. Like, you talk about, like, Goulashi, right? Or, like, Blaszczewicz. Blaszczewicz is the starting keeper now for
Leipzig.
And he's been pretty solid. But it goes to show, like, Blaszczewicz was like a bottom-end goaltender in the Eredivisie, and now he's like starting on one of the top 10 or 15 teams in the world.
Sure.
And playing Champs League and playing all their minutes, and he's been serviceable. So it just goes to show, like, goaltender really does not matter that much outside of you want your guy to play, and you don't want to have to question that.
Well, it's not that it doesn't matter. It's just that
what?
It's not that they don't matter.
They do matter, but they don't matter in terms of, like, you need them to play. You want them to play. You want to not have any question marks surrounding them at all.
Yeah.
So Surface just asked, would Sorare be better if it was just SO4 with no goaltender? No goaltender would make it better, but you couldn't do SO4, but you could do like SO7. Or a different hybrid of the game where you have another player or two that is in your lineup. So, like, you could do SO5, just remove goaltender and add another player maybe. Like, I would rather, like, if I was just designing the game today, I would definitely like an SO7 where you have like 2 defenders, 2 midfielders, a forward, and then 2 flex spots. But then you need people to have more cards, and that's a whole nother can of worms. But goaltender sucks. Goaltender is not fun. You don't like goaltender. Like, I had Van de Voort on Saturday, and this doesn't matter because he saved a penalty. So, like, once you save a penalty, it takes all the pressure off for the most part of what goes on the rest of the game. But Van de Voort got absolutely peppered with shots because they were down a man because Preciado's an idiot. But, like, I'm just sitting there, and it's just not fun. Like, you're just watching your goalie just get obliterated with shots. And if he gives one up, you're just screwed for the most part.
The upside's pretty great, though.
The upside's great. The upside's 100. The upside's definitely fantastic. But, like, he didn't even need the clean sheet. Like, he could have conceded, probably put up 95. Look, see how many saves he had. He had so many saves. Dude was just getting peppered. It was absurd. Like, I literally don't even know if he needed 30. Yeah, he didn't even need it. He gives up a clean sheet. He's still at like 92.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, yeah, you got a few extra points, but he had 7 saves, 6 inside the box. Dude was getting peppered. The other U23 goalie that I like is Mamarashvili for Valencia or Villarreal. But he's locked in on a champ team. The only way he can really go is up from there. And he's already on a champ team that is pretty solid. And he puts up reasonable scores, and his age is pretty good. So, like, I think Mamar, and he gets international games, so international gameplay doesn't matter that much except for U23. If you can get a U23 goaltender, there's like 5 of them. Mm-hmm. So if you have a U23 goaltender, that when you get those weeks where there's like an international break, but like Argentina still plays and like Brazil still plays and Japan plays, which happens, like those happen. Having U23 international goaltender can be very, very helpful.
For sure. That's why they're more expensive, though. I mean, it's not like we see Donnarumma and, although, well, yeah, Donnarumma and.
Yeah, I'm not talking World Cup. I'm just talking like you literally.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, they won the Euros and Nations League. There are plenty of international competitions that are not the World Cup that Donnarumma is great for.
Yeah, I agree. So it's just like those are guys, but like, back to our discussion on goaltender, like Lars Understall. Understall is locked in at 20 because the backup is Przemysław Titon, who's like 85 years old and was an MLS washout. Like,
you're right.
They're not going to just.
It's wild that he is still like a thing.
They're not going to just be like, we're just going to bench Lars Understall and play Titon.
Right.
No, like Titon might play if he gets injured, but he's not going to bench him. Like, and so like this happens. Like, you got to look if you're like looking at the sort of like challenger type guys, or any of them, like if you look in like America and you like look, and so Sean Johnson's backup, like Barraza. Like Barraza's not going to push Sean Johnson to start. Barraza's there as the backup for Sean Johnson. Then you look at like Toronto and you see Westberg and Bono, and you're like, well, Westberg sucks. Bono also sucks, but like he is someone they will turn to. You're like, well, I don't really want Westberg because he is not reliable. And then you're like, why do you buy a super rare? I sure as shit don't want to spend more than a rare to get a super rare and have this guy be a guy that washes out. So like even Joe Willis. Joe Willis was like the most expensive goaltender before last season. Maybe even before this season. Was he before this season? Was he like the most expensive goaltender in MLS? Or was it Blake?
Willis, he definitely had like a player of the year card made.
Yeah. So like you're looking at like this guy was like beyond locked in, but he's older, and now they're like, well, we're gonna play someone else. Like same thing with like Tim Malia. Like Malia's not locked in. They played Pulse Camp, and like Pulse Camp could realistically be the starter. But if we look at like where like Joe Willis was selling it, that was probably his player of the year. But like he was selling at 1 ETH. He literally sold at like 1 ETH for Joe Willis, a 33-year-old MLS goaltender.
Yeah.
So Josh is giving the Passphere comment. He's like, the worst pain is when a goaltender wins like 6-1, 7-1, and the goaltender comes away with like a terrible game, which is definitely true. Like Passphere probably put up 35 because he did nothing and then conceded.
I mean, that's the case Correct. Every week with Passphere.
I think the goalie that gave up 7 in that game smashed Passphere.
Oh yeah,
but I watched that game. He was really good. He made some huge saves. Like it was literally like the Brian Brobby from 2-inch like zone, and Brobby just couldn't score. I laughed because I was watching the game. Brobby just like put the ball into the goalie's chest from like 3 feet, like over and over again, until he finally got a chance from 1 inch on a header with the goaltender out of the way. And I was like, all right, we finally found Broby's range, where it was literally 1 inch into an open net with no goaltender in there.
Didn't that happen with Kurzakov too, or did he get the clean sheet?
They held a clean sheet.
Like if Zenit concedes,
no, Zenit, I
he's
think
at
they held a clean
34.
sheet, but I actually didn't pay attention. But I'm pretty sure they held a clean sheet.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, like the same thing. Like those high-end goaltenders. That's why like the best goaltenders are typically like Donnarumma and Mignon and guys like that, and Allison. I mean, obviously they're champ Europe goalies, but like goalies that see a little bit of action are generally better than the goalies that see no action, because if a goalie that sees no action concedes, he's like 30, and like you get like 30, 35. If a goaltender sees like some weak dribblers from 30 yards and he gets like a 15 AA, well, then if he concedes, it's like, all right, well, my lineup's not dead. Mainly for me, like obviously, like I want 2 things out of my lineup from a goaltender. I want spikes.
Yeah.
And I want my lineup not to be dead if they concede. Dead.
Yeah,
so like
yeah.
if you have a line where like my goalie is either going to put up 80 or 50, but it's going to happen like those outcomes are going to happen like 60% of the time, and then like he's going to end up with a disaster like 30% of the time. I would probably rather take that than a goalie that's going to get a clean sheet like 60% of the time, but he's literally like 60 to 65 points and that's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like really,
there are a lot of competitions where you want your outfield players to be like that.
Correct. Well, yeah, outfield is a bit different because like outfielder, you're typically looking at like the floor guys and then the guys that get goals, and then obviously the guys that get both.
Yeah.
You want guys that do both. Similar in goal, like you want a guy to see a few shots, a few sweeper keepers, or whatever. Like, yeah, that's what you really want. You really want your guy to just go out there and blast the ball out of the stadium, and then you get your 3 points and move on. Or you want your guy to just go out there and just smother the ball and just flat down. Like I would be pretty good at that, Laird. I just run out there and just plop on the ball, probably smudge it, but hey, I'll give myself 5 points.
Yeah. We need Tony.
Oh, yeah. Sam said 3 things. And he said the third thing is lock in 100% starter. You don't have to question. That is correct. That is more important than the other 2. The most important things are those 3 things, but like you just want to not have to worry about your goalie. Like if your goalie gets COVID, so be it. Like it happens. Like it's going to happen. Like if your goalie just gets a random injury and misses a game, like whatever, it happens. Like you can't do anything about that. But you literally don't want to sit there and have to be like, oh, is my guy going to start? Because I just don't know if he's going to start right now. Like you don't want that.
No.
Our good friend Tuggy is in chat. So for those aware, Tuggy is out there boasting this weekend. He was. Did you see his argument yesterday, Laird?
To be honest, I felt so bad about how we treated him last week. You.
Like,
that
you were the bold
I'm like basically on Team Tuggy at this point.
No, you're not. So, anyways, so for those unaware, Tuggy and I have a little bet because he bought a William Carvalho super rare. Again, we didn't talk about this, I don't think, last week. So Tuggy and I have a little bet on if he can win a card with the William Carvalho super rare, because my point was he's just a guy and he's not that good and he's not going to help you win a card very often. And Tuggy's argument was he can help you win a lineup. But what Tuggy doesn't understand, this is where Tuggy's misconception is. Since Tuggy bought the guy, he's had one respectable game in 2 months. Okay. So, like, the idea behind a card and saying that a card can help you win is that, like, this guy's going to be productive enough for you, let's say a significant portion of the time, so that you can win a card. Because, like, anything can happen on 1 week. Like, a guy that sucks can get a line clearance. Like, I'm pretty sure if I look, I'm going to look at this right now. I'm pretty sure that in the Ajax game, someone on the other team got a line clearance, because literally they just peppered the goal in that game. So, like, I'm going to see if someone got a last minute tackle or a line clearance for dude got two. Same guy got 2 line clearances for Excelsior. So Excelsior, Serrano Seymour got 2 line clearances, put up 70 points with a -2 all-around game. So the point is that, like, if you have a guy that literally puts up, I looked at Carvalho, he's got like 130 games in his log. He has like 10 games with which he cracked 60 points. So that's like 10 respectable or better games from Carvalho. So that means if you have, let's say he doesn't play midweeks, because Carvalho is not playing midweeks right now. Every 10 game weeks, Carvalho gets you a score good enough to be in a lineup winning a card that it's like he is carrying his weight type of thing. That's once every 2 months. If you're playing a guy that does a good enough performance to get you a card once every 2 months, that's not a good enough card, hypothetically speaking. But so Tuggy's argument this weekend, Laird, was he proved me wrong, because it's pretty clear that Carvalho was good enough to win him a card, and his proof in that was that he didn't win a card. That was effectively Tuggy's argument. I'm just like, I don't think that's the correct argument to be made here, Tuggy. Like, yes, other people let this lineup down, but there's been 8 other game weeks in which he's played William Carvalho, and Carvalho put up like 32 points, and he was not productive in helping you win a card. So, like, over the whole long part of things, like, is he going to help you win a card? No. Could he win you a card in any given week? Sure. Like, tell me that this guy's like a guy that you're like relying on to win you a card, Laird.
I think it's a card that you could win a card with.
Yeah, any card. You could literally give me any card that the player starts, and I would say that.
Yeah.
Literally any card.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's the problem. Like, any card can win you the other argument, this would have been a fair argument had Tuggy made this. This would have been a realistically solid card for an underdog, because he's under 40 or under 50, and he's pretty much always going to stay under 50 because he's just not that good. So if you buy this card and you're just like, I just want this guy in my gallery as like a consistent L15 guy that I can run in underdog contests, that's realistic. That's realistic. Yeah. But his idea is like, this card's good enough to run in like gas 3 with like studs. And I'm like, I don't know about that. Really, what's funny is Tuggy really. So we're talking about Tuggy. So Tuggy, I'm going to tell Tuggy how he feels, because I know how he feels. Tuggy so badly wants to get out of this card. And here's the thing, Larry.
No, if he really wanted to get out, he would have gotten out by now.
No, because he's too stubborn. That's
oh, well, that's different. Yeah.
Yeah. So Tuggy really wants out of this card, and he should have. This card sold. He paid 0.19. Go look. There's a sale for like 0.395, I think, like 2 weeks after Tuggy bought it. So, like, regardless, like, all of those are like way higher than what Tuggy.
They're all higher, yeah.
Tuggy could have sold the card for those price points and paid me off in the bet and still profited. But Tuggy is so stubborn that Tuggy refuses to get off the card because he wants to win the bet.
I mean,
Tuggy says that he raced to the floor and the race to the floor started. I don't know. If that card was at 0.375 and you had it listed there, you could have sold it, Tuggy. Tony Watt bought it. Tony, why did you buy this card, if you're listening?
Yeah. I was trying to see if Tony used it this week in Underdog, but he didn't.
But like, so Tuggy, and I said from the beginning, like, I didn't think he was going to lose money on the card, because it's 0.19. Like I really didn't think it can go down much to where Tuggy's gonna actually lose money. So like in terms of like buying it, it's fine. You're not losing funds on it most likely, but you're just not helping yourself win. It's
Do you
just
think
like
it's a more helpful card in the super rare division than pro?
yes, but again, I don't think it's realistically good enough there that often either. Well, it's also better if you are like stacking it and telling a story of like you think Batiste is going to smash for a game, but Tuggy literally had other options on that team and then sold them because they weren't good enough, and he was way worse than the other options because he had Pizzella Super Rare and he sold Pizzella Super Rare, and Pizzella Super Rare is a better card than Carvalho Super Rare. So like if you're going to have worse cards, stacking it definitely makes sense to try to like bloat up the scores. But yeah, Tuggy messaged me last week as soon as we were done and said that I woke up and chose to bring violence today.
Yeah, apparently you did today.
But I said it was your
You
fault.
just waited for him to show up.
You were like leading me around a maze, and like every corner you turned me around in that maze was like a dead Tuggy body, and I had no choice.
I'll take no credit for that.
So Tuggy said that Pizzella became a dumpster fire. Well, what is Carvalho, Tuggy? Go. Let's go look at Pizzella, Laird. Let's go look at Pizzella because I'm going to assume Pizzella is better than Carvalho. I don't know because I don't care that much about these guys. You tell me this is a worse card than Carvalho, Laird, with a straight face.
I mean, I'm not buying either of these cards myself, but that's just for my own gallery.
So if you had to pick one of these cards, Laird, which one do you think is less of a dumpster fire?
Is this a? I think Carvalho is a better card.
Why? Because you're trying to make Tuggy feel better.
Like I said, I don't want either of these cards.
Why do you think Carvalho is a better card?
I mean, it just looked like the scores are better, no?
No. Looks like Pizzella's scores are way better. And Pizzella...
I mean, he has basically 2 games over 80. Whereas, there's probably 0 over 80.
Yes.
Oh, 1. Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think... I don't think either of these cards are better. Like, I think they're exactly the same.
Good old John Nellis is in chat. Did you see people were trying to like victory lap on the Fleming discussion on Twitter this weekend?
For what was the discussion?
They were late. I got made fun of because of Zion Fleming and Nellis buying Zion Fleming, and because he's been terrible.
Like months ago?
Yeah, like someone on Twitter the other day. I'm trying to find the tweet and who sent it, but isn't it Milkrain? Isn't Sorare Turbo Milkrain?
Maybe.
So I think so. So he literally was making fun of the Nellis purchase of Fleming, which, by the way, I need to clarify. We did not advise him to buy Fleming. We just used Fleming as an example. I guess that's a discussion point that for everyone. Like, guys we talk about aren't always, we're not saying, like, go buy this guy. Nellis just literally heard the names and then just snap went and bought him. But anyways, Milkrain was victory lapping because he was like, oh, you guys said to go buy Fleming, and Fleming's been terrible. Fleming's been pretty damn serviceable, if not good. The guy that won U23 Rare Pro last week had Zion Fleming Super Rare in their lineup. And then so also I think, again, I think it's Milkrain, so I'm just gonna say it's Milkrain. Milkrain said that Milkrain disagreed with our comments on selling Kulishevsky. Go look at Kulishevsky. Because I'll tell you who looks a lot more appealing to me right now, based on what they've been doing.
I don't think we need to victory lap anything at this point.
No, I'm not trying to victory lap. I'm just saying, like, Milkrain was victory lapping on Fleming being not very good, but he said his arguments were more so that we were wrong in saying to sell Zion or to sell Kulishevsky. But like looking at this, like,
I mean, he's hurt. That happens.
Well, when he wasn't hurt, he wasn't very good either.
I will say I learned last week that it's Zion Fleming, not Zion.
Sounds cooler.
Yeah.
It's like
I learned that because of the Sorare TV show that I do with Sam Ty and Harry Trades.
Oh, I saw that. I saw the new show.
Yes. So if anybody hasn't checked that out.
Will Sam like battle you guys? Because otherwise that's like way too nice of a group.
None of it is about battling. It's about guys who have good situations coming up.
Yeah, but you and Harry are like just way too nice. So like if you're like bantering, you guys will both be like, oh my God, let's hug each other. Let's like, I agree with you. You're never wrong, Harry. Oh my God, Laird, you're never wrong. Will Sam like disagree with you guys?
It's not really a banter show.
Okay.
It's not that
But
type.
It's more so you guys are just all holding hands saying Kumbaya.
We're probably hugging a little bit.
Okay, well,
It's
that's
not just
good.
holding hands. No, it's a very good show.
Who wouldn't want to hug Harry, right?
I think every single show has been great. So we've done one of them, and if anybody hasn't seen, please head over to Sorare TV on YouTube and check that out. So yeah, that's they made me call it Looking Up with Laird, which I really didn't want to do, but
No, it's a good name.
yeah. But anyway, go check that out, and everyone else on Sorare TV. There's some good stuff on there.
Here's a college football question, and similarly, like people sometimes their names just could be way cooler than they like are actually pronounced. So there's a tight end for Utah. His name is Brant Kuithe. It's like Kuithe, so like it's pronounced like Keithy. How much like harder and cooler is a name Brant Quaith? Like how much better is it like if you pronounce it like Brant Quaith?
I guess.
Yeah, like it just sounds so much like cooler. He sounds like a badass because he's a tight end. So like I'm just like Brant Quaith running down the field instead of Brant Kuithe with the catch. He's out for the year though. He unfortunately is injured. But anyways, I talk about that literally every time I bring up his name. So when we're talking about Zion, like Zion sounds less cool than Zion.
No,
Zion
we mentioned that on the show. We agreed with you on that one.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. I mean, at least you guys are covering the important topics like that.
That's right. That's right. All right. We have completely fallen off the rails here. So thank you to everybody who has joined us live, including John Nellis and Quinny, who checked in for the last 3 minutes. And somehow Tuggy showed up just in time for the violence. So if everyone else could hit the like button, that'd be very appreciated. And if you're listening to the audio version, you can please rate and review it wherever you listen. I'll be back later this week with Andy for Sorare Andrews. We actually already have a topic, and I'm pretty excited about it. So Sean doesn't know what that's like, finding out a topic days ahead of time. So
used to know what that was like.
Yeah. So everybody check that out. And then Sean and I will be back next week for another strategy show. So good luck, everyone.